Hi, welcome to the Member Lounge podcast. In this podcast, you'll learn how to grow your association membership. I'm your host Farhat Khan. I am the CEO of Member Lounge. We build membership websites for professional associations. Our app Member Lounge is one of the quickest ways to build an engaging membership website for your membership. With Member Lounge, you can take your member marketing on autopilot so that member engagement just happens without you having to work hard for it. You can see a demo of Member Lounge on our website at memberlounge.app. That is memberlounge, all one word, .app. This is a live recording of our podcast. If you're joining us live today, welcome. We got some amazing questions from the audience already, but if you have any more questions during the episode, please submit them on Zoom questions. We're also streaming this live on YouTube. So if you're joining us on YouTube, you can submit your questions by using the YouTube live chat. Today, we're excited to have Jeff Horne with us, and Jeff is the CEO of Wicket. We will talk about how to build winning member journeys with a technology ecosystem. Jeff, thank you so much for joining us today. Can you start by telling us a bit about yourself and your work?
Yeah, thanks, Farhad. Thanks for having me. Always great to join these types of discussions here in the association community. My story, I've been working in technology within the association sector for almost 25 years. So a lot of background in web and implementing web solutions within the association and nonprofit sector. Most recently, we launched in the past 5 years Wicket, which is the world's first member data platform. So we are, I guess, considered a bit of a disruptor in the world of association technology, just bringing a completely different mindset to associations, how they manage core membership data, but really how they embrace an ecosystem approach to software and technology versus kind of the traditional way that most associations have around their technology. So that's what I spend my time doing these days, is very focused on Wicket and our member data platform. Happy to be here, Farhad.
Okay, so let's dive in. You mentioned an ecosystem, right? So how do you define an ecosystem, and what problem are we trying to solve?
Yeah, that's a great question. So really, when we talk about an ecosystem, really what we're talking about is a digital ecosystem for associations. And so maybe the best way to describe it is to compare it to the way associations have historically worked. The historical way most associations have leveraged technology is to have what's called an association management software system, or an AMS. AMSs are built full of modules. They try to do as much as they possibly can. So it's kind of the one software can do everything for you. And I think what we saw over time was that it's very unrealistic for one software to do everything for any business, let alone an association. And so we come at it from this idea of an ecosystem approach, which is really about using a connected suite of software tools. So instead of trying to put as much as we can in one system, there's still foundational systems, but it's about connecting that. And so using good software across the organization, regardless of size of organization, embracing software that makes the best sense for your unique needs, because as much as associations have a lot in common, they also have a lot that is not in common as you go deeper and deeper. So really, it's about empowering association staff to use the tools that make the most sense for them to use, that they want to use, but making sure they're connected. So connected to a data source, a primary membership database, and also connecting them into a web platform, right? Something that can really allow members to engage and really be a hub for members. So there's different elements of thinking about an ecosystem, but that's kind of the high level summary of what we talk about when we talk about it. So in a lot of cases, it's talking about the ecosystem approach for an association as an alternative to traditional association management software.
Okay, so when we're building an ecosystem like that for the association technology, what would be your starting point? First of all, I think where would you start? Do you have to pick one base system that you really, really want to use? And then how do you build around it? Or would you take a different approach altogether?
Yeah, I think of course at the core, most associations have something today that they're using for their membership database. Often that is the AMS, right? Often. So that's probably the most common thing we see, but we also see other people that might be using a CRM, some type of CRM, or even people who have built custom systems as well. And so that membership database, or that place where you store all the people that you interact with, all the organizations you interact with, all the groups, all that rich data, that is just such an important critical element. It's like, what is that system of record, right? And it can be one of many things. Like in our world at Wicket, it's the member data platform. Like that's its role, to be that hub. So for us, that's where it starts. It starts with what is going to be that system of record that you can count on. And when I say you can count on it, really, it means that you have an extremely high level of trust in the data in that system. You can look at it, you have complete confidence that it's up to date at all times, that data is being shared and connected with other systems. So we kind of consider that to be the foundation, right? Is you need that strong system of record. And then it's about what's around it. Like, what are the other systems? And so there's kind of different ways to look at it. There's to best explain it, like we here at Wicket, we work with the American Society of Association Executives, so ASAE. So they're here in Canada, we have CSAE, and in the United States, we have ASAE. So we're implementing our platform for ASAE right now. And Reggie Henry is the Chief Information Officer at ASAE. And I really like the way he describes this, as they're going on this journey of embracing an ecosystem approach with us. And he thinks of it as the run the business systems, and then the member-facing or engagement systems, like the other tools around that. But so that you've kind of got these core systems that you need to run the business, and that is a membership database system, like that system of record. It's the web and or e-commerce platform, right? You need to be able to sell membership. You need to be able to sell all kinds of different things as an association. So that's another just foundational run the business system. Typically the website would probably be included in the really foundational, right? Like these are core systems needed. But then around that, there's a lot of tools, and not every association needs the same suite of tools. The more member-facing tools, the engagement tools, that's often unique. It depends on what type of association you are and the type of work you do. But there's all kinds of tools then that would be around it. But I think the starting point typically is those kind of core run the business applications.
Got it. So in that case, Jeff, do you see that people like to kind of like pick and choose all the different tools all at once? So for example, like I need an event management, I need like something else, maybe like a social media type like platform. And then do you see people like picking a list of everything and then coming to you to implement it all, to connect it all with Wicket? Or is it like on the go? Okay, let's add one piece first and then like see how it evolves and then go from there.
Yeah, I guess it's more the latter. But what I would say is that most associations, when they're looking at their technology roadmap, and if they're going through a digital transformation, the reality is they're already using tools. They're already using good software, because the typical association, if they're using an AMS, what is happening over time is that the role of the AMS keeps decreasing. So 5-10 years ago, you would have used the AMS for not only your membership database, but for all your e-commerce and dues management, for running your website, for doing your email marketing, for running your events. But what's happened is the role of the AMS keeps getting smaller. And the reason it is because associations are already going out and just embracing good software. For email marketing, I just use it as an example. An AMS can't build an email marketing module that is as good as MailChimp, Constant Contact, HubSpot. Like there is no way, because those companies, that's all they do. And they are very good at it. And they work in the entire world in all different types of business verticals, not just associations. So they build these extremely powerful products. And so most associations would already be using a tool like that. Odds are they're not trying to still use. So I think that's important, because often when folks come to us to talk about, well, yeah, like we want to kind of get away from this AMS model because we've tried it many times and it hasn't really worked out all that well. Usually they're already using some good tools And it's not about saying we need new tools for every single thing. That can't happen. But most associations aren't doing that. They're already using good tools. And so the journey they're going on is about often that they're using those tools, but those tools aren't very well connected with their core system, with their AMS. And so they're struggling with that, or those systems aren't talking to each other properly. And so usually that's part of the problem, is they don't have that trust in the data in their system of record because things aren't properly integrated, or it's just a whole bunch of manual work to go like get data to this system, put it into this system so I can use that tool more effectively. So it can be a bit of both. I think typically, when folks come to us, usually we end up focusing a lot on those run the business systems, those really core systems. And then the beauty of the model, and I think I think this is the single most important thing for associations when they think about their technology roadmap. If you ask me what is the single word that is the most important and should drive technology roadmaps, it's flexibility. In 2023, you shouldn't be embracing any system that's foundational to your organization that doesn't give you flexibility. And so the days of we're going to invest in a system and in 5 years we expect to throw that system out and go get a new one, those days should be behind you. You should not be thinking that way from a technology standpoint anymore. You should be thinking that you want strong foundational systems that give you flexibility. And so that as technology evolves and as your organization evolves, you have the flexibility to go choose pieces around that. And, hey, there's a new email marketing tool that's really phenomenal, that's leveraging AI, doing who knows what. Well, you want the flexibility to go embrace just that piece and replace that other piece, right? So the days of thinking about technology as the whole thing, and then I got to replace the whole thing every 5 years, that is not the way to think about technology. And I really encourage associations not to be thinking that way. Because you need flexibility. Technology is changing at just an insanely rapid pace right now. And so you don't want to lock yourself into big monolithic all-in-one systems that just don't give you flexibility to be more nimble, because you don't know what your members are going to need 2 years from now, because their world is going to keep evolving because of the impact of technology as well. So I think that idea, just flexibility as a cornerstone of a technology strategy. I feel like I could, go on about that all day, but I think it's just the absolute most important consideration. So it kind of it really does speak to just this idea of, yes, you want to be able to select this different systems that allow your staff to best engage with your members, to be as efficient as they can in doing their job, to make their jobs easier. And also that flexibility to use the tools that are going to allow you to give your members the best experience, to engage with them, to embrace, new technology and show them that you're innovating. So there's just a whole lot of good stuff in there. And then, having a more flexible technology strategy is a cornerstone to all that.
So you mentioned two things I want to dig deeper on. So you mentioned you need to have a good trust on one system or some systems, and then good trust in your data. Can you expand a bit more on those? What is trusting a system? What is trusting your data?
Yeah, they're very interconnected, those two things. So really, I think at the end of the day, really it comes down to trusting your data. So you want to have a foundational system that stores your membership data that allows you to have high trust. It sometimes blows my mind that we will speak to folks and it's not easy for them to answer the question of how many active members do we actually have, because when they look in different places, they get different answers. And that's a big problem, right? That's not good. It's you should have a place where it's going to tell you the truth about that, right? And so often the reason for those is because of either disconnected systems, systems aren't sharing the data properly. And so you look at it here and it tells you one thing, you look at it here, it tells you something else. And it's like, well, which one is actually up to date? Or sometimes the system you're using just can't easily answer the question for you, even though it seems like a simple question to be able to answer for an association. So I think like when we think about trust in data, the trust comes through integrated systems. It's like when you, like an example being you have a member who is registering for one of your events. And in doing that registration, they realize that the address you have for them is out of date. So they update it. So they just did that over here in an event system. Like it could be like maybe for your major conference, you're using a third-party system for that. Well, if I'm that member, I just expect that, well, I changed it and I'm engaging with my association. So now I've updated my address. And so you don't want that member when they go back in to log into your member portal website and go, see how you're represented, for that to be the wrong address. Like you want that address to have been updated. Maybe in your email marketing system, you're segmenting based on geographic location. Well, maybe now you're segmenting wrong because that proper address is updated in that source system. So that's just a simple example of how if the systems are properly connected and sharing data, and you're deciding kind of the rules and parameters in which another system can update kind of that golden record, if you want to call it, right? Like you have a golden record for each of your members, for every person, every company that you interact with. That system of record, it has the golden record. It should have the truth, and you're being intentional about, well, what other system can update that golden record, all right? So.
Right. And that reminds me that if you have like different membership tiers, and say you want to like send out like one communique to one particular tier of membership, and in order to like just do that one little thing, it shouldn't be, in this day and age, this shouldn't be super complicated. Hey, we have like 3 tiers, we want to send a message to this tier, right? So then you'd have to like jump through a number of steps, export a contact list, import on MailChimp, and then did I do it right? What went wrong? And then since it's manual, it will wait for 1 or 2 weeks. So a simple like activity like sending a message to a membership tier shouldn't be this complicated. And if you have it all connected, then this becomes easier.
Yeah, 100% Farhad. Like, and that's a really good example too, right? Like you want whoever at your organization, whoever is responsible for marketing, for sending out email communications, you want them to just go use the tool, go use MailChimp, right? It's like marketing people love a tool like that, right? So let them use it, and just when they go to use it, make sure the data is just there, right? And that's like this type of approach really supports that. It's just, yeah, the data is connected. Marketing people can just go do their job using the tools they want, and they can trust that the data is there and that it's up to date, and that they can now segment that data using that tool, like whether it's based on membership tiers or geography or who knows what other demographic or geographic data that's been shared with that system. You want the tool. So you want the tools you're using, you want them to have the data that they need to allow them to do the job best for the staff, right? And really that's core to this ecosystem approach. It's a connected ecosystem where you're not going to share, and sometimes this is a bit of a misnomer, it's you don't want every system to have all the data, right? It's not this like magical word where it's just like, oh, everything's updating everything all at once and has everything, because it's just not realistic. Right. And that's actually very complicated. But it's about, well, what data does the email marketing system need? Let's make sure it has it. The event management system would probably need less data than the email marketing system. Because the email marketing system, you want to give it a lot of data so you can segment. So you can use the tool to create segmented sublists and whatnot. So you want to have a lot of the data there. An event management system, it wants to know things like first name, last name, maybe with the company they work at, their email address, their mailing address, what type of member they are, and their status of membership, typically because you want them to get maybe a discount. If they're in this tier of membership, then the event system lets them have a discount on their ticket price. So So different systems want different types of data. Like if you look at learning management systems, online training systems, there's certain data that's going to be really important for them to have as well. And then another question becomes, well, what data should be written back from those systems to that system of record? And again, it's usually not everything, right? It's not everything, but there's certain things you're going to want to come back and allow to update those core records in your system of record. So.
And I guess like every single time you're relying on a manual step to transfer data from one tool to another, there is a room for error, and there's a room for the data to be out of sync right there.
Yeah, I think that the moment you're introducing manual steps for moving data, there's so many potential challenges there. Like number one, it takes more time. It's inefficient, so now staff are doing something that's just not a good use of their time. You are more prone to make a mistake. Like you didn't pull all the right data out of the system. Maybe something went wrong when you're uploading. So you're just introducing more. Something that's actually really big that doesn't always get talked about is you're also introducing security risk. You've now downloaded data out of one system on probably to your local computer. So now you have a whole bunch of data about your members sitting on your local computer. You're now going to take that data and upload it over here. So, and now what did you do with that file that you downloaded? You probably just left it on your computer. So you're opening yourself up to also just overall security risk and getting away from some security best practices. So it's another thing that integrations bring is a more secure way to move data between systems, because it's all secure, it's all encrypted. Like there's just standards that are used as data is being connected and integrated between systems. So there's a lot of benefits to it that some obvious, some not so obvious.
Yeah, so and this question comes up very often. Like some associations think that investing in technologies like this, it's like very expensive, right? So, and they have their staff. So if their staff can do it manually, like why invest in all this tech and automation and whatnot? What would be your response to that?
Yeah, I think that really comes down to it's an ROI discussion, right? It's the return on investment of technology. And I think it's, the idea of paying a human to do manual tasks that could be automated is not a good ROI on that person that you have hired or paying. So unless it is very strategic and smart and it, requires their input and, that's all good. Like there are things that it takes a human being to do for sure. So, when it comes down to technology, I think there's a balance. There's a balance in, every time you're rolling out technology is to ask, what should be automated? What are the things that we should automate because it's just manual work? Like it's not value. You're not adding a lot of value. It's just something you have to do. It's just something you have to do. And there's a clear process to do it. Well, let's try to automate it because that's going to save staff time. And if you save staff time, it's not about eliminating a staff role. It's about empowering that staff member to be doing much more strategic things with their time. And that's an interesting discussion because it's really hard to say, well, here's the exact ROI on that. But there absolutely is a very significant ROI on letting technology do what it's good at, letting it automate the things that can be automated, having data move between systems automatically, empowering staff to use data and to help make data-informed decisions for the organization. So there's just so much benefit to making that investment in technology instead of saying, yeah, but this person over here can just do that manually and can keep doing it. In a world where the labor market is very tight, it's changing a bit, but it's still very tight. You want to empower your employees to be able to being able to do interesting work instead of doing menial tasks that technology can come in and do for you. So.
Yeah, and I guess it's also a matter of like mental capacity, right? So the more mental capacity people have to like focus on what is most important. So for example, this one example that I shared earlier, I want to send out a message to my like this one membership tier, and my marketing person has to move data from here to there, like spend maybe like 1 hour to just move data before she can focus on the actual message. So if we can like free up the person's mental capacity in that moving that data, and if that entire mental capacity could be focused on the email message only, that's a much, much higher ROI for someone who's like more experienced.
Yeah, 100%. Like let them focus on where they can add the most value, which is crafting that message, right?
Hmm.
Or better yet, going and using, artificial intelligence and a tool like ChatGPT to craft that ideal message. Like this is the changes we're seeing in technology now. So, but yeah, at the end of the day, you want staff working on areas where they can use their knowledge and expertise to add value. And to your point, use their mental capacity to focus, instead of just having to do things that are just things they have to do,
Hmm.
and the more menial parts of their job.
Okay. So Jeff, you and I recently worked on a client project together, right? So we were trying to like present like an ecosystem approach like to our client, and then like the board probably like decided otherwise in that case, in that particular project. So in a situation like that, like how do we justify this approach to the board?
Yeah, that's a great question, right? I think that every organization is unique, and the role of their board can be unique. Like some boards are much more operational than others, and so I think at the end of the day, when association executives are presenting to their board, the key is that you have the right information and that you understand the
Yeah.
impact that the technology is going to have on the organization. Right. And that's really what a board member wants to see. They want to understand, well, what is the ROI we're getting on this technology? Here's this price tag that we're going to spend, we're going to invest. What is the long-term impact on this? So it does mean you need to think through and make sure you have the right information to make that presentation, not only to understand what the costs are, but what the projected impact is on the organization. Not only on staff and staff happiness, and how this is going to impact, your ability to retain staff and find staff, and how staff are going to be able to work more on those key strategic initiatives instead of, being frustrated by technology every day, which is so common within associations, that the staff are just, living every day frustrated with the tools that they have to use. And so there's the staff side, but I think the reality is that by using good modern technology, and giving members a modern experience. And this is where associations often fail, is not delivering at the level of experience that we all as consumers expect today. That other brands that we all use every day, have got to. And then I go engage with my association, and it feels like this clunky experience from 15 years ago. And that's very frustrating, right? For people. And like, we live in technology, so it's more frustrating for us perhaps, but it is frustrating for everyone. So I think from a board standpoint, I think that understanding of the impact that using modern technology and increasing the experience of members, the ability to increase engagement, is only going to have positive downstream impacts on retention, on potential growth, on uncovering new revenue opportunities and finding non-dues revenue opportunities. Like, there is just so much there. But as someone working in an association, you need to be able to gather that information, get it from your vendors, and make sure you can present it in such a way. And so we have, as vendors, have a responsibility to arm our customers with that type of information. And sometimes we see situations where, that a board is sometimes being asked too much, where the board is not being presented with, here is the option that we as staff believe is the best option, and here's why.
Right.
Sometimes the board is presented with, here's 3 options and you decide. And usually the board isn't well positioned to make a decision like that. right? In my opinion, boards are there to, yes, ask questions and to validate, and make sure they're asking the right questions of staff and executives to make sure that it's a good decision. But it's the role of staff to select a vendor, make the decision, and then get buy-in from the board. And so sometimes we do see that the board is actually being asked to make a decision from multiple options when really, that should be at the staff level.
So the board should be there just to like justify and validate and approve that, oh, you know what you think is probably great. Here's the approval, or ask the difficult question. Have you thought about this? Right?
Yeah, 100%. Like most associations, whether it's in their bylaws or governance, whatever it might be, may have requirements where they need to follow certain procurement steps and they need to look at certain number of options and do these things. Not all have that strict of rules, but some certainly do. And I think that, those are usually there to ensure staff are following those practices so that when it does get to the board is, yes, asking questions, or maybe there's a committee involved ahead of time, a finance committee or something first, and then it goes to the board for approval. But really that should be just the last step of validation and making sure questions are being asked and that it's a good decision is being made by the staff. Not the making of the decision itself. So it's a nuanced difference, but I think it's something, and I think your associations open themselves up for more risk. Because when you're presenting, something to a board, like sometimes it's just going to be the lowest cost option wins. Just because it's the lowest cost up front doesn't mean it's going to be the lowest cost over time. We're giving you the best opportunity to increase revenue or increase member retention. So that's why it can be dangerous to just put a decision to the board in terms of selecting from a series of options.
Right. And oftentimes the board won't even see a demo of the application that they're choosing, right? So they weren't in the discussion, they were not in the meetings. Like for example, like what we find is that like anytime we and here's the plug for ourselves, like anytime like we show our demo like to a client, like we usually see that like our client they get blown away by the demo itself, right? But then like when we want to like get a buy-in from the board hasn't seen that demo, right? So how do we translate that experience from the meeting with the client all the way to the board? So we struggle with that ourselves.
Yeah, 100%. And that's it. The board doesn't have time to be, they haven't committed that time to go through demos and go through that whole vetting process that the staff have gone through. So, and we've had instances where the staff that we're interacting with say like you are our preferred solution, but the board went with another option, and that's tough. It's like so there's something's wrong there in that process, right? So I think it's just something that associations should be thinking about as they go through the journey of evaluating tools, selecting the right tool, and then getting board buy-in. It's a journey.
Right. So we work a lot on member journeys overall because like we are very like our product and everything is very member facing. So we work on journeys a lot. So say we are connecting different apps together. So there's an event management app and then there's like MailChimp and a bunch of other different apps. How do you maintain a good member journey for the member? So not for the staff, maybe just like let's start with the member. We'll come to the staff after as well.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different components to this, right? And it depends on the type of membership, the type of members, and the types of tools. So if we think about some different tools, some tools that you're using as an association, when I say tools, I mean software. Some software you're using, the member will engage directly with. They will log into it, they will use it. So like your website, your member portal, if you have an online community, an event registration system, those types of tools, the member is logging into that tool and using it in some way. There's other tools like an email marketing platform where they are just receiving information from it. I get an email from MailChimp, but I'm not going to go log into MailChimp and start interacting with it. So there's the member experience on that tool is in the content that that the member has received, how it's been laid out and where it's guiding them to. So there's different ways to think about it, but it's part of the journey, right? Because the member's journey might start by receiving that email from you from the email marketing system, right? And of course you want that to be a well-designed, well thought out email, which tools like MailChimp or Constant Contact, these more modern tools certainly allow you and empower you to do. So there's that. Another piece of member experience, when we think about an ecosystem approach, is making sure that the systems have the data they need to do their job best, and to make sure that the member feels like you know them. There's nothing more frustrating for a member than, going from one system to another, and you want that to be a very seamless process, but they get to go register for the event and it doesn't have any of their information, and they have to re-enter it. And they're like, why do I have to keep doing this every time I interact with the association? They shouldn't have to, because the systems should have that data in them already, and maybe the members just validating it. So having the right data in the right system at the right time, so the system can do its job and the member feels like you know them properly, is another important part. And then the other element to that really is the actual member experience that they're experiencing, perhaps visually, or how they're interacting with tools. In this area, in our perspective, we really view the association's website as a real key hub, right? The website is we like to think of it as the glue that holds it all together, right? And there's different website platforms that can be used. I know at Member Lounge, you guys have a member portal platform. There's great web content management platforms out there like WordPress that we're big fans of. So there's a lot of different web platforms, but we believe the website is the glue. So our approach to that and the way we think about it is, if a member comes to your website and logs in, you want that website to not only be a place for public content, but usually for delivering member content as well and member experience. And through integrations, you can pull data from other systems in to a member website or just into your website. So it could be that, you want to show the member, maybe you have an online community, right, that's in another system. Well, on your website, you could show, here's the recent discussions from our online community. They're happening over in another system, but you're prompting the user to say, hey, while you're here on our website, here's what's happening in the community. And then when they click and go over to the link would take them right into that other system, log them in, right? So single sign-on and having a unified login is incredibly important. You don't want your members having to log into every separate system and have 8 passwords. So SSO, or single sign-on, is a really important consideration too. It's part of what we provide with our product to our customers. So you really want the website to be the launching point, right? Maybe you can pull in events from, your major events platform, list them on your website, and when the user clicks to register, it's going to take them over there. And you want it to ensure that any of those tools your members are interacting with, you want them to be on brand, and most modern software tools allow you to, design and bring your brand elements across, because you want the member to always feel like they are still interacting with your organization. But the days of it all having to be in one system are over. Like we as consumers of business applications, it's normal for us to know that we're going to interact with different systems for different functions, and we just want good experiences. So using good modern software that provide modern experiences that aren't clunky, that don't introduce friction for the user journey, right? That nothing's getting in their way of doing the thing that they need to do. It's really important. And I think that, when we think about, kind of going back to the business systems and then more like member engagement type systems, there's different journeys that a user is going to go on, like, renewing your membership. Like that's a core functionality. Yeah. To run the business system, you want that to be smooth. You don't want there to be barriers, and you want to collect money from your member, and you want them to have a seamless process in doing that. And that's a really core function, and you want that to be well thought out and easy for the member to do. And then there's other types of member journeys that are less core to the business, but they're incredibly critical to member experience and member engagement. And those could be things like registering for an event so they can come and take part in the community, engaging in dialogue in online community in a tool like Member Lounge. So there's a lot of other ways that you want to have still very frictionless experiences for members, but there really are like fundamentally different types of journeys that you need to think through. And good software is built to deliver good journeys, right? So Randy said, so Randy's got a few things in there. You mentioned Drupal. Yeah, Drupal is a very commonly used
Yeah.
website content management system as well. And The Hero's Journey by Joseph Campbell. Yeah, a good reference.
Yeah, that's a very good. Yeah. Okay. So I guess like on that note, there are certain things members will do frequently throughout the whole year, and certain things they will do very infrequently. So do you distinguish them some way, like how automated they should be?
Yeah, and those might come back to kind of those more transactional type interactions where it's like, yeah, once a year I have to renew my membership. Once a year I'm going to register for the annual conference. And then there will be engagements that are more, I'm going to engage in dialogue in the community, which is something I could be doing weekly. I'm gonna register for a webinar maybe once a month. Like, yeah, there's all kinds of different journeys. I think at the end of the day, we want them all to be frictionless. I think that for tools like that, like I think if I think about, an online community type platform, and I know Member Lounge provides this too, like where you're having discussions and trying to engage, like you want that to be incredibly easy to use. You want very low barrier to entry. You want people to receive notifications and make it really easy for them to engage and jump into that dialogue. Because as soon as there's friction in an experience like that, the likelihood of that person coming back and engaging in that dialogue next week is much lower, because they're like, it was a bit of a pain. I had to jump through these 3 hoops to respond to that message, and maybe I'm not going to do that. So there's certainly a role in good overall just user experience, and I think that something like we are just big believers in using good modern technology. And I think associations historically have sometimes gotten, too laser focused on only adopting software tools that have been built for associations. And there are great software tools that are built for associations. Heck, we're one, you're one. There are good modern systems, but there's a lot of legacy systems that really don't deliver great experience. And there's a whole world of software out there that delivers great experience, can be used. And like email marketing is a great example. Like just use modern email marketing tools. There's a lot of great tools out there that don't necessarily have to be member centric, but there are obvious ones that make a lot of sense to be member centric because there is uniqueness about the world of associations and membership. But there's a whole world of good modern software out there for folks to be looking at and adopting. And it's a trend we're starting to see now with folks going out and reaching outside the association ecosystem for some of their tooling. So,
Jeff, so here's a $1 million question for you. There are a lot of clunky AMS or association management systems out there right now that are very dominant in the market, very, very dominant, and they are not great. The associations know it, we know it, you know it, right? Why does the whole industry not realize that we have this tool, our members are not happy, the staff is not happy, yet they're unwilling to change?
That's a great question. The main reason, from my experience, is that when they adopted that system, it was like the worst experience of their lives.
Okay.
They went through it and they got to the other side. It was not a good experience, and they have PTSD from that experience. So I think we see this with a lot of associations where it's like, we'll be talking to a new leader that's come in and they're saying, hey, I've come in and I see how we're doing things. And oh my goodness, do we ever need to change and modernize? But the staff, the last time we implemented a new system, it was a nightmare. It took 2 years. It was traumatizing. And there's very low appetite to do it again. So that's part of the problem that's happened, is that, these implementations, historically, the AMS systems, they often don't go super smooth. They often don't deliver what was said was going to be delivered. And so it's a painful memory. And it goes back to that mindset of, I'm going to do this again in 5 years. I just got to get through 5 years. Even if it's horrible, I just got to get through in 5 years, and then I can justify moving on. And I think there's a lot of associations in that, facing that reality now, where they're like, okay, but my goodness, don't wait that 5 years and then just do the same thing again. Don't just go buy a big clunky all-in-one system. As good as the sales pitch might sound, because what has been shown time and time again is that the sales pitch can be good, but in practice and in implementation, most associations are going to be quite unhappy with the outcome. So yeah, I think that's a big part of it. It's the resistance and also budget, right? They might have spent a lot of money to implement that system, and it's like, well, we got to get as much as even as painful as it is, we got to get as much as we can. But like, we've seen examples where, we talk to folks and they say, we know now that if we don't change the system, our staff will probably leave because it's such a pain. Like, they're just, frustrated every single day. And if you have a job where you're using clunky tools for your day-to-day job, you're probably not going to stay at that job all that long. So I think that's part of it, for sure. And yeah, I think often what we see the triggers for change are when, new people have joined an organization, and come in and look and see how things are being done and say, oh my goodness, like there's so much opportunity for modern technology to transform this organization and how we do things. So sometimes that's what it takes, is an outside perspective of a new staff member.
So that reminds me of a recent client experience that we had. So we were doing a workshop with a client, and don't want to mention names, but they just implemented an online community type tool, and then they were not happy with what they did. And when we were doing the whole workshop, and then they saw the strategy, they saw our demo, and then their mentality was that, we just spend this last 3-4 months implementing this new tool. We are not super happy with it, but I don't want the 3-4 months experience to kind of go to waste, right? So maybe we'll keep in the same course and then see where it ends, and then maybe decide. So when I heard that, I didn't want to reply right away. I was like, so maybe I'll let them think that for some time, and then next meeting we have, I'll probably share. So my thought in a case like that was that say you have a destination in mind, and you started your journey, you're driving, you have a destination, you started driving, and then you started driving sideways to a different direction. And when you're like 1/3 of the way, you realize, oh, this is the wrong direction. What would you do? Do you keep driving in the same direction? No, you change course as quickly as you can. Even though you spend so much time driving there, you change course as quickly as you can, because if you don't, you are just wasting more time, and it'll be that much harder to come back, right? So I think a lot of people don't realize that in general, and they think that, oh, I made this investment, I have to get as much ROI from this as I can.
Yeah, that's a great example, Farhad, for sure. It's, if at your core that you're gonna, you're just doing it because money's been spent, and in the long run, it's going to cost you more. And it's going to cost you more than just dollars. It's going to cost you in member experience, and member experience equates to member renewal and membership renewal rates. And so there's just so much downstream impact of not making that course correction and getting to the proper destination that you were trying to get to. And I think that, it kind of comes back full circle to this idea of thinking about technology and having flexibility as a cornerstone. Because if you're thinking in a more flexible mindset, and if you're using more of an ecosystem approach, any one tool is not doing as much work as it might otherwise. And so making those course corrections and saying, oh, we started implementing this system, but realize it's not the right one, so it gives you way more flexibility to do that. If you're implementing a great big AMS that's going to take over your whole world, and 6 months in, you realize that this implementation that was supposed to be 6 months is now going to be 18 months. And I don't think we're going to get all those things they said we're going to get. That's like as obvious as it might sound to make that course correction, it's a much more painful one to make because you've invested time and money, and it's probably touched every department, every group, and has probably been involved. So that idea of making that course correction becomes, oh my goodness, like no, we don't like this, but we just have to stick with it because it's so big. All right. So, my hope is that, associations should never again put themselves in a situation where they're so reliant on one system. It's a very dangerous game to play with technology. It's definitely not a modern approach to software. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I guess like sometimes like we do have to rely on like some core systems like the member data management, say Wicket, right? So we would like rely heavily on that one tool, but when we do like pick a tool that we have to heavily rely on, we have to make sure that the tool is like open enough that works like openly with the ecosystem. So another like client discussion we had just yesterday, and they were saying that, like the tool we are using right now, by default, they don't want to connect with others. And I'm so glad that like you guys are saying that like, okay, you have an open API for everything. You can connect to any other tool. Right. So I think like this is another mindset as well. So if your current vendor, they're saying that, oh, you know what, we're not going to let you connect with that other tool because, they're a competitor or whatever it is. Right. I think that is like a warning sign.
100%. Like that's a really interesting discussion in and of itself, is that, I think that historically a lot of platforms in the association ecosystem have not been great at integrating with other software. They've been more chiller and they want to do as much as they can in their system. And so a lot of associations have bad experiences with trying to integrate. It's like, it's very expensive, or the vendor can't really do it, or they say they can do it, but it never really works. Like we hear this so very much. So I think when you're selecting software, like a Wicket, like our platform as a member data platform, it's built as an API. So it's built using a software approach called API first. So it means every piece of data, every function within our software is available through our API, an API being application programming interface. So that's how software communicates with other software.
Yeah.
And we've built our software like that because and it's an open API, it's documented. And so in our world, when your data is in Wicket, it can be connected through API with any other system. And that's the world we believe in. And so I think that I'm still surprised when I see associations that have recently adopted a new technology system. Maybe it's a new LMS, maybe it's a new community. And they asked the question during the sales process, do you have an API? Or can you integrate with other systems? And for vendors, that's a very easy question to answer. It's like, oh, yes. And if you don't ask more questions, there's a good chance you're going to get burned, because there's a big difference between a salesperson saying, oh yeah, we have an API, or oh yeah, we can integrate with anybody, to then actually seeing the proof that they can. Like, it's things like, okay, well, can I see your API documentation? What does that look like? And you don't need to understand it, but if you can see it, that's a really good step, right? It's like, oh, they do have API documentation that they publish. Is it just a good first step, whether you understand it or not? And so it's surprising. Like there's still a lot of vendors that aren't good at this, but there's so many that are, and so, working with vendors who really appreciate the importance of working in an integrated ecosystem, that they're not trying to like hold your data hostage or hold, that functionality hostage and not be able to share with other systems, it's incredibly important. It's one of the most important things to ask. Like, no matter how good a software tool is from a functional standpoint to meet your needs, if they can't prove to you and show that they can integrate and play well with other software, that should be a full stop. Should be just a full stop, because you're going to pay for it down the road one way or another. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're saying that, because when we set out to like build Member Lounge like a couple of years ago, like that was, so we used to work on a technology like which is PHP. Our audience may not know PHP, but like it's a slightly older technology, and our whole team were experts in that technology. But then we realized that the kind of experience we want to like give our like clients, like our association clients and like whatnot, and then the type of APIs we want to open, like using that like technology our team knew with PHP would be very, very difficult. So we had to like switch our entire team's kind of like skill set, train our team on the newer modern technology. And now like we are very much like that as well, like Jeff, that any function that we have within our platform, it's like API based. Everything has an API, everything like can be connected to something else. So I'm so glad you're saying that.
Yeah, that's a good comment that just came in there from YouTube Live, asking vendors for an open API or Swagger definition usually results in blank stares. That it's so true.
There you go.
And if it's a blank stare, then that's not a good sign, right? That's an indicator that maybe that vendor isn't ideal, or if they can't at least tell you that they're going to follow up with you with some of that information, because you definitely want to see that that type of validation for sure.
Yeah. Alrighty. Now, one concern we have often had that associations often like have like very lean like marketing or technology staff in-house, and most of them are not experts either in marketing or in technology. So, who are the people who should be involved in technology management in the association?
Yeah, I think it's no one person. That's for sure. And I think that's a real interesting trend. Actually, we were just part of a docu-series that was developed within the association community called Jobs of Tomorrow. And we were involved in one of the episodes, and it was all about this changing role of IT. And the role of IT in associations is changing, and it's changing dramatically, right? Because of cloud-based solutions and the use of what's called software as a service, which is like, what you and I would operate, where it's like, you don't have to install it or anything. It's just cloud-based software that you use and that we're all super used to using today. So the role of IT is evolving a lot, right? And it's more around vendor management and making sure tools are working together within an ecosystem. So I think, a lot of associations don't have internal IT. Like, I think that's a reality. We see a lot of different models from smaller staff organizations that don't have any IT at all to more maybe mid-sized associations that might have a person in IT, or that is kind of the IT savvy person on staff, all the way up to large IT departments, right? Like, there's such a huge variance within the sector depending on the size of the organization. But I think what's really changed a lot is that, you want the staff who are going to be using the software tool to have responsibility for that tool. So not only, and you want them to be involved in selecting it and managing the ongoing relationship with that vendor. So have your events team be heavily involved in choosing the events vendor. Like, IT should be doing that. And you could bring in an IT consultant, you could maybe get some validation and help, but the events people should decide, as long as the right questions are being asked about integrations and stuff. Then, so you want departments or the person leading that area of the business to have some responsibility because you're not, with modern software, you're not running upgrades, and it's a different type of vendor management. It's a relationship. And if you have a question, you can reach out to support online and get an answer. So the technology has evolved so much, and the relationship of association to vendor has evolved a ton too. And so I think at the end of the day, it's about empowering people to own those relationships across the organization and not have to have it all funnel through IT. IT, whether it's an outside consultant that you work with or your internal group, has a role, of course, to oversee. You're going to have certain, depending on size of organization, you may have certain requirements around data governance, data security, depending on size of organization. And IT will have opinions and thoughts there about, certain baseline requirements the systems need to make. But I think it's a bit of a misnomer that the idea that this type of ecosystem approach versus having the one AMS vendor that you can reach out to, I would argue strongly that it's better than, because if that one, it's a single point of failure with your AMS vendor, and which is quite common. If you're not getting great support from them, well, now you're stuck and you're not getting good support. All of these areas of the business. Whereas if you have just, if you're not happy with, the vendor you're using for events, well, guess what? Change your vendor. and find one that provides better support and provides a better system. So comes back around to that flexibility. But I think it's a role that changes. I'd be happy to share maybe afterwards. Farhad, the link to that episode. It's a docuseries called Jobs of Tomorrow, where we have a specific episode about the evolving role of IT in associations.
Right. And I guess Jeff, you mentioned this as well. I had this as a question to ask you, but you already mentioned this. So so good technology should always be frictionless. It shouldn't get in the way of what you're doing. So if an association staff is trying to do something and the technology is the barrier, then by default that is a bad technology, right? So good technology should kind of be frictionless, get out of the way, and be the catalyst to empower the person to do more and focus on the task. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, 100%. We've talked about that a bit, but yeah, it should not be getting in the way. It should be helping. It should, it should feel seamless and easy to use, and it should be reducing friction, not creating friction. I think is another way to look at it. So, technology can make your job easier, make your life easier. I think, unfortunately, within the association sector, there's been a lot of not so great experiences with technology. And, we're folks like us, I guess, we're on a mission to change that and give people better, more modern approaches and tools. So.
Yeah, and something just came to my mind, when we were talking about the IT teams and then who should own which piece of technology. So what we have found in our experience is that any single time, say you have a team member and that person say he's running events, and in order to get anything done with the events, if you can reduce the number of points of contact to get any job done, so the more people that person has to go around, the more friction, the more delays, the more work for everyone. So I think as much as you can kind of make it make one person the point of contact and let him do everything, I think that is better for every kind of job.
Yeah, no, I'd agree for sure. So I think, letting people focus and be focused on the core tasks that they need to get done, and comes back to removing menial tasks and work and automating things when we can. I think it's all connected together.
Right. Actually, a good example, I think I should talk about this example. So what we mean by this is that say if you're responsible for MailChimp for running the campaigns, right? And then you run into a MailChimp issue, but you have an in-house IT person. If you have an issue with MailChimp, the person running the campaign, should open the support ticket to MailChimp. Do not go through IT for that, because your pain, your problem, how you use it. So you should interface with MailChimp and their support directly, not go through your IT to talk to MailChimp.
Yeah, 100%. You want to be empowered to be able to do that. And because, you have the best context, the problem you're experiencing. And, I think most of us have, gotten used to that day to day. We all use different software tools for all kinds of different things. And if you have a problem, you reach out to support, and, and that's pretty common. I think people should be empowered to do that. And get away from this older mindset from a technology standpoint, where it's oh, I'm having a problem, so it's IT's problem. It's if you're having a problem with this system, you should have a direct line of communication with that vendor to discuss that problem and see if they can help you.
Alrighty. So Jeff, you and I can do this all day, but I want to get to audience questions right now at this point in time. I'll take the first question from Sarah Mania. So Sarah is asking, what are some visualization elements that can engage members within an ecosystem approach?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Some visualization elements that can engage members. So I guess it really kind of depends on where Sarah's going with this. When you say visualization elements, I think that, there is just, the design, the experience that you're providing, which are visualization elements that, the best possible experience you can provide. It's just going to allow the person to have a better feeling of interacting with your organization. Visualization elements could also be more like data visualizations. How can I visualize my content? How can I visualize the information that I'm providing to my members? And there's a lot of different, ways you could approach that, leveraging data visualization tools, and all kinds of interesting things. So Farhad, I'm not sure if you have any specific thoughts or comments on that one yourself.
Yeah, so I guess like what I was thinking in this case is like the navigation being extremely clear that I'm going from here to here to here, right? So
Yeah.
like one challenge that we often see like in an ecosystem approach is that like when you log into a public website for an association, you're logged in and now you're the member, you're logged in. But then like even while you're logged in, like you're seeing a lot of like public things, then it's difficult for us to know like which is the member content, which is the public content, right? So I think like that clear distinction that, you know what, this is the members area, this is members content, and you know what, this is the public, this is for everyone else. And if I'm entering events, this is the events. If I'm entering discussion, this is discussions, right? So I think the navigation and clear segregation from one to the other.
Yeah, I'd agree with that for sure. Like those are good points. Like, clear, visual cues to the user as to, the type of information, whether it's gated information that they need to log in to access, kind of where they are on their overall journey, I think is all good. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So the next question coming from Kate Gertz. So Kate is asking, what are the most important factors for managing a member database linked to our website offerings?
Yeah, that's a good question, Kate. So, I think, there's a few things there. Like, I think that, you definitely want to have your website connected to your system of record for membership, 100%. So in our world, that's Wicket. And like, but you may have another system that you're using for that. And I think that, there's a few elements there. Like there's the idea of single sign-on, right? So you ideally want to have a single login to access your website. That's the same login that your members will use to access any other software tools that you're providing to them, your learning management system, your online community, these different elements, because you want to make sure. And so often it is the membership database that might be providing that functionality of login and single sign-on. And then with that, you want the website, when a user is logging in, to then know if they're a member, know what roles they have, maybe know if they're part of a specific committee or group. So there's that sharing of roles or access permissions that can then enable you on your website to share content specific to those groups. What we often see as well on websites is that you want to display a member directory, right? And so often that data is in your membership database. And ideally, you would be able to integrate, through an API from your website to that, into your website, so that you can have a live feed of the most up-to-date data from your membership database that appears on your website. Of course, not showing all content on that member, but showing the specific most important information, maybe even having that, on a map that can be navigated in a lot of different ways. So there's a lot of different ways, a lot of different points of interaction you might have. You might want to allow users to manage and update their profile right in your website once they've logged in, right? So there's a lot of different points of interaction.
Okay, alrighty. So the next question, actually, Randy has a question. How do you balance privacy and member directory?
That's a good question, Randy. Really, at its core, it's asking users to opt in. So I think, when it comes to privacy, that's really one of the key elements. Now, that opt-in can happen in a lot of different ways. It can just be by signing up for membership and paying that. At that point of transaction, the member is agreeing that they will be displayed in your member directory. So there's different ways, but you want to typically allow members to opt in or out of being displayed in your directory one way or another. So I think that's a factor. And then I think the other factor from a privacy standpoint is you typically want to allow your member to have some level of control of how much information or the level of information that's going to be displayed in the directory. Maybe they don't want their phone number to be displayed, but by default, you do allow them to say, hide my phone number, locations. There's a lot of different things. So I think you have to be careful with that. Like, you don't want your membership list that's on your website to become a spamming tool for somebody else.
Yeah.
Right. To just go scrape it and start spamming your members. So I think there's a balance there. Like, a member directory can be a very valuable tool for your members, because a member benefit can be that the public through your website can find them. for their services and whatnot. So there's a balance there. You ideally, allow people to be able to connect with your members through that because there's a benefit there. But I think it's about giving the member a reasonable level of control over opting in and what information gets displayed.
Yeah. Okay. So next question is from Tegan Carrison. So Tegan is asking, how can low-tech teams implement these strategies?
Yeah, we were talking about this a little bit. We were talking about like the role of
Yeah.
IT, and I think it's about, working with vendors who are helpful and are going to guide you on a journey to embrace technology and not just say, here it is, you're on your own, go do it. Right. So, you want to work with vendors who will help you to get the system set up and running, and will help you to integrate the systems together because, if larger organizations that have a large IT staff may even want to integrate some of the systems together themselves because they want that level of control. Most associations, especially small ones, do not want to worry about that. You just want it all to work, right? So you want to work with vendors also who can help with that integration and help to connect all the pieces together. I also think that, it's an opportunity to bring in outside consulting help as well. Whenever we work with, especially with smaller staff groups, it always is good for them to bring in some outside digital or technology or IT consulting just to help to get them set up for success. And it's not just, of course, from a technology standpoint, but it's from a change management standpoint as well. Because the technology is only going to be effective if people are ready for it, ready to embrace it, ready to use it, ready for that change. And so change management becomes a really important element, right? So it's the people. A lot of it is the people more so than it is the actual technology itself. So yeah, low tech teams can do this for sure. I think at the end of the day, you want to empower your staff with tools that are easy for them to use and not overly complicated. And lets them do their jobs. And in reality, this overall approach supports that very strongly.
Okay. So next question is from Jacqueline Gershman. So Jacqueline is asking, what is the best CRM system for membership? It's a trick question for you.
Well, Jacqueline's actually, I know Jacqueline well at Winnipeg Construction. I think, so Wicket, our member data platform really is built to be that hub. It serves people, organizations, and groups. So we don't call it a CRM, but it feels a lot like a CRM for sure. So obviously we're quite opinionated about, the power of our platform and its capabilities. I think for folks looking for like a traditional, more sales focused CRM, like where you want to, track, maybe you have suppliers or sponsors that you're taking them on, taking them through a sales funnel. There's lots of good kind of what I would call lightweight CRM tools out there. Pipedrive is one of our ones that we've used a lot in the past and is a good one. It supports a lot of great integration. So there's lots of lightweight CRMs that can be from a sales management process. But it does kind of come down to, I think when people use the term CRM, they can mean a lot of different things.
Yeah.
So I think CRMs historically have been used for a lot of different functions, but sales is kind of like what they were built for and intended for.
Okay, so possibly our last question for the day, but this question is very important. So this is from Linda Haas. So Linda is asking, how do I get members more engaged?
Well, that's a big question. Oh, goodness. Well, there's so much, right? I think that, today's topic is all about technology and how technology can help, right? It's not the single answer, it's like, an example being an online community, right? It's not one of those things where if you build it, they will come, the technology is just a piece of the equation. You need to intentionally engage with your members to build community and get them engaged. And there's a lot of different strategies specifically around, online communities and building that community, that that should be leveraged, because the technology is it's just the first step. It's like, well, you need the technology, but now you need a program around engaging people and getting them involved and seeding the discussions and being highly engaged in the discussion. So that's just one example. That I think certainly there's no question that using more modern technology, you're going to give your members a better experience, and that goes a long ways. If every time your member engages with your organization, it's seamless, it feels good, it's with the type of experience they would expect, then that's only going to help them. It's going to make them want to come back. You know what it's like when you go to a website or you interact with a vendor and it's clunky, or like something went wrong or didn't feel right. Like you typically don't go back unless you really have to.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that technology can play a huge role there for sure, in terms of just using good tools that have, the types of experience we as consumers expect. Goes a long way in and of itself.
Right. And I guess like technology is really an enabler. You have to have good strategies, good program, good content as well. And then technology will actually amplify that for you.
Yeah. So very true. So very true.
Okay. Alrighty. Jeff, so what would be your key takeaway for the audience today?
Oh, my key takeaway. Well, I think I have to go back to kind of where I started, which is that idea of flexibility as an anchor of your technology roadmap and strategy. Do not go into, evaluating new technology systems with a mindset that, this big system, I'm going to keep it for 5 years, then throw it out and get another one. Like, you shouldn't be thinking about technology that way anymore. You want to be much more flexible and much more nimble in how you think about technology. So I think that's the most important message that I could share.
Okay. And how can people reach out to you if they have any more questions?
Yeah, you can check us out at wicket.io. So wicket.io. You can reach me at jeff@wicket.io. I could talk about this stuff all day. We work exclusively in the association community here in Canada and the US, and love talking about it, whether you're considering new systems or whether you just want to talk about where you're at and where you'd like to get to. Always happy to have those types of discussions. So.
All right, Jeff, thank you so much for joining us today. It was so much fun.
Thanks, Farhad. This has been a lot of fun. Hopefully we can do it again sometime.
For sure. Alrighty. Okay. So that was the episode with Jeff Horne. And I guess we have a lot of takeaways from this episode. And like Jeff and I, we are both tech guys, so we can talk about tech all day. So if it was overwhelming for you, then I think I would like you to kind of go back and look at the key messages, the flexibility piece, and then making sure that the technology that you're using is open, and then it connects with other tools easily as well. So if a vendor is asking you to be completely locked in, use our tool, and then no connection with someone else, that is a warning sign. And as always, like I say, we get a lot of takeaways from webinars like this, but until you take action, nothing happens. So if your team member has not joined this webinar and you would like them to kind of learn more about this, send them the link, send them the YouTube live, so they can learn about this as well, or share the key message with them. So with that, we will wrap up for today. And we hold a lot of events on our website. So if you go to grype.ca, you'll see that we have webinars and live podcasts every month happening there to help the associations grow their membership. Alrighty, so that's it for now. I will see you on the next episode. We wish you all the best with your membership journey. Bye for now.